This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Hi there. Thank you so much for being a part of Raising Me. This is a place where we take those challenges of parenting, big and small, right to the experts for advice. I mean, it's not like we get a guidebook here, so we're really lucky enough to get help and support from some pretty awesome people who really know their stuff. I'm Adrienne Stein, longtime journalist and a mom of 3, trying my best to figure this out. Plenty of days, though, on that struggle bus. And our guest today is going to help us all get off that struggle bus when it comes to keeping our kids busy, active, and engaged throughout the summer without feeling like a cruise ship director. You know this feeling, right? Always ready with an activity or an event or some kind of big idea. Dr. Kristy Perkowski is with us. She's a pediatrician with Northern Light Health and is also a mom with kids at home, so she knows what we're talking about here. She's going through the same things. Loving summer. I mean, who doesn't, right? But feeling overwhelmed at times about keeping everyone busy and safe and engaged both physically and mentally for the next few months. So here's our conversation with her pro advice. Dr. Perkowski, I'm so glad you're here. You've been with us before. For anybody who hasn't listened to some of the episodes that you've joined us for, you're a pediatrician, a mom, and you're dealing with some of these same things that we're experiencing as well.
Absolutely, Adrienne. Thanks for having me back. And it was so timely that you asked me to come talk about summer and children, because I actually didn't realize that my kid's last day of school is next week. It's coming. It comes so fast. We wait for it and we wait for it. And then all of a sudden you're asking yourself, when is the last day? And it's sooner than you thought it was.
It's like now. Well, since we're among friends, I'll admit I thought my preschooler went to the same last day as my older 2. Turns out he doesn't. He was done a full week ahead of time. In fact, his last day is today. And we're like, okay, well, that is an extra week of childcare. And what are we going to do? So I love summer. It is hands down my favorite season, right? At the same time, there's kind of a little stress underneath it, I think, for parents, particularly working parents who are like, okay, but I have to fill that time. And sure, there are summer camps and there are rec camps and all those great things. We have 3 weeks before our rec camp starts in the beginning of summer and 2 weeks after it ends before school starts again. So it is kind of like a push-pull of like, oh my gosh, we love summer. It's so amazing. And oh my God, what are we going to do?
It's true. I always tell my patients that transitions are hard for all of us. They're hard for kids. They're hard for parents. And finding the new rhythm, right? Because you always do. You've done this before. And even though right now, thinking of a week from now, our entire day's routine and structure being completely different than it is right now today, that feels really overwhelming. But you've done it before. And I think there are things that that you probably know have worked, things that haven't worked, and you can revisit that. But it's always good to think of fresh new ideas to keep your summer, just keep it fun. And I think anyone that's on social media probably sees these things that say you only get 18 summers with your child. And that's a lot of pressure. To feel like this is it. I have to make the most of it right now. That's a lot of pressure. And I actually think kids are a lot simpler than that. I was talking to my 8-year-old son last night. I told him I was doing this podcast and I said, what are some good ideas for kids? What makes summer fun? And he said, well, you go to a playground, but you bring water balloons, and I was like, oh, that does sound fun. Great. Put it on the list. And so I think that simple things feel super special and different to a child, and you can embrace that.
That is simple. It doesn't cost anything but your time. But, you talk about social media too. There is some pressure as like, well, wow, okay, they're in France. Okay, wow, they're vacationing on the beach in Florida. That sounds nice. The reality is a lot of us, as parents, we're working parents. We have to work in the summer. Odd. We'd love if we also got a summer break, but it is finding that balance of having activities for your kids, things that are engaging. Also knowing that kids are under a lot of pressure and they have a lot of things going on all year. So looking for that sort of simple relaxing time too, and making sure that we're incorporating that.
I totally agree. And I definitely think that sitting down with your child, that conversation I had with my 8-year-old was so telling, right? Water balloons. Yeah, we can do that once a week. He'll probably won't get tired of it. It sounds like a lot for me, but I think we could get it done. Maybe once a month this summer we could do it. But I think that engaging your child in those conversations and making it sound really fun. What's on our summer bucket list? What do you want to do this summer? What would be fun for you? And just brainstorming those ideas ahead of time. Because I think sometimes it's the end of August and you're like, well, where did the summer go? It feels like there's so much time ahead of us. But like you said, Adrienne, for working parents, the days are actually numbered. And so being prepared ahead of time, you could even have like a rainy day bucket list and a, big summer goals bucket list. So that then when the days are available, you go to the list and say, what are we going to pick?
You say that you ask your patients, what are you doing this summer? Everybody asks that leading up to the summer. Why do you ask that question? What are you hoping to get from the answers?
Oh, that's a great question, Adrienne. Well, I think one thing for a pediatrician is always reviewing the safety things that come with summer. I think being outside, being around water, there's a lot of consideration in terms of safety. So water safety for pediatricians is a top priority, keeping kids safe around the water, knowing which adult is in charge of watching at all times. The thing about drowning is it happens very, very fast. And so an adult cannot turn their attention away. And so you need to designate that adult. I think when they've looked at situations where there has been an accidental drowning, a lot of times there were multiple adults and everyone thought someone else was watching. And so knowing who's on guard is super, super important to keep these kids safe. So I always review that when I hear we're going to go in the pool, we're going to go to the beach. We always talk about water safety. And then same with the sun. Sun safety is huge. When we're outside, it feels so good. We're indoors all winter long. We finally get to go outside. The sun feels so good. Protective clothing to prevent sunburn is really, really important. And that is the primary way to prevent sunburn. We want the hat. We want the protective clothing, lightweight clothing that doesn't let a lot of sun through. It needs to be like a tighter weave. You can tell this by if you just take a garment and hold it up to the sun. If a lot of light shines through it, okay, that might not be as protective against the sun. Of course, they do sell the UPF clothing. It doesn't have to be that. But the primary protection against the sun is the protective clothing. And then for sun-exposed areas of the body, we do recommend sunscreen, at least an SPF of 15 to 30. And for children, we do like the mineral-based sunscreens. They may not rub in all the way. That's okay. That's how it's supposed to be.
Once they get to a certain age, they know that it doesn't rub in all the way. And
I know.
Sometimes you get a little pushback.
Well, you're just keeping it real by mentioning that. That is true. And I think a pediatrician approach to that situation is that some sunscreen is better than no sunscreen. So if they cannot tolerate a mineral-based sunscreen, then look for something else that they can tolerate that, they can rub in the way they want to. So those are some of the top safety points that we review.
When it comes to, the thing is too, we want to keep our kids physically and mentally engaged through the summer. Obviously, they need some kind of break. Kids are very busy all the time in more ways than I think, we even realize. It's a much different generation. But why is it important to keep physical activity up and activities that are mentally challenging through these summer months?
Yeah, so I'm not an educator, but I do know that there is this summer slump where there can be a regression in some of the academic skills that were acquired during the school year. And so I think that keeping your kids engaged in something. Now, you don't, exactly what you said, you don't want it to be as structured as during the school year. It couldn't possibly be, but that there are so many learning opportunities. Like if you have to bring your child with you to the grocery store because they're home from school with you and you can't get that done on your own, you could say like, let's weigh these apples. How much do they weigh? Like, or is this a good deal? 3 for $5? Is that a good price? Is that better than the regular regular price, and just kind of getting their brains to use the skills they learned in school in the real world every day. And then, of course, reading is huge. And one of my favorite pastimes with my children, and they're almost outgrowing it, but I have one that'll still let me do it, is reading outside, like on a blanket in the summer. That is so fun to me. You can do it at the beach. You can do it in your backyard. You can do it on your deck. Front step, like just being outside in nature, being with your child and reading to them. It's so important, and it will be enjoyable to the parent too. I find that very relaxing. Sometimes it makes me sleepy. I'm sure every parent can relate to that.
Yeah. We have a hammock, and I will do that sometimes, is just go out and read and like have to fight. Sometimes my eyelids get very droopy out there. And then of course the 5-year-old comes running and screaming and like, what are you doing? Why? Let's play. One thing that comes to mind too is obviously this is different for each age group. I'm just speaking as an observation and as a mom who has a middle schooler. I find this age really tricky for many reasons. There are camps and rec camps and like all these activities for younger kids. High schoolers are, off working their summer job or doing this, that, and the other. The middle-aged kind kids where, maybe they're not doing a rec camp or something like that. They're too old to have a babysitter. They can't work. They're too young to work. That's kind of a tough, that's the age that stresses me out the most on making sure, like in my case, my son has enough things going on.
Yes, I also have a middle school age son, so I'm navigating this too. And I know that he is really motivated by being with his friends. He wants to be with his friends. And I think exactly what you touched on, it is an age of new independence. They're not as little. They don't need nearly as much direct supervision. And I think, depending on the child, allowing that independence will actually feel really great for them. And with trustworthy peers is probably, a great way to spend their time this summer. If they have siblings, especially younger siblings, I think that engaging them in an activity that a middle schooler can say is okay for them because of their younger sibling, but they might enjoy it too. And I'm thinking,
that's a good idea. Like what?
Like lemonade stand. This is like,
yes.
I invested in supplies for a lemonade stand like 3 or 4 summers ago. And I think it is my kids' like favorite thing they do every summer. And as the older one gets older, he can do more of it. And then he feels responsible and like he's executing this lemonade stand. And we usually choose a charity to donate to. And so the kids feel really good about that too. And so that might be a multi-age group activity that works really well. And same with the reading. I mean, if you had a middle school age kid and then you have your preschooler, having your middle schooler engage in reading with the younger child, that sounds like a win for everybody if you could.
Yeah,
if you could get everyone behind.
Hey, let me know how to do that. That'd be great. No, it is, they have enough age difference where they get along amazingly, or it's like the middle schooler wants nothing to do with his little brother, but such is life. That's how it goes. We talked about obviously some great like things to keep our kids mentally stimulated. What are, some things that come to mind to keep them physically active that maybe doesn't feel like, hey, let's go run a mile, makes it feel like fun and play? What are some things that we might not be thinking of?
I think that especially younger children, if you just go outside with no agenda and keep it very open-ended, I'm pretty sure this child will engage you and play. I can almost bet on it. And if they need some little prompts, like you get down on the ground and you say, like, what if we were a bug? What would a bug see? What would this look like? If you have birds in your backyard, how many can we count? It sounds so simple. And I think as adults, we've lost the ability to play. Our brains don't need to play anymore. And so I actually had a parent explain this to me once as the pediatrician, and it so clicked for me. We were talking about engaging our children in pretend play. And I said that I always start with the best of intentions. Like, I'm going to be this little man and they're going to be the other little man and we're going to talk. And 2 seconds into it, I don't know what else to say. My imaginary play is gone, but the kids, it's not. They know just what to do. So you just let them facilitate and guide that. And it generally would probably involve running around the backyard, playing tag, things like that. The slightly older kids, which are the tricky ones that I know you're talking about, I do think that if you have access to like a beach or a lake or a pond, like swimming is just so good for their bodies all around. It's, especially if safety is first, but learning how to swim is actually a really important life skill. Swimming improves like coordination. It's relaxing. Everyone can do it. Like, I can't stress enough, if you have an opportunity to go to a place where you can swim, teach your kids to swim, that's a top summer activity, and keeps you cool when it gets really hot. Sometimes the backyard can be really hot. So that's a great option.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
You go back to it, all these things we're talking about are very simple. It's I think in some ways it's just getting back to the simplicity. We do not need big moments, big trips, big social media posts, like going to water balloons at the park, even just going to the park, sitting and acting like you're a bug, or counting birds, or going swimming. Those are such simple things that a lot of times as parents, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have these big, grand things to do. And we don't need that.
I completely agree. And I had another parent that asked me this week. This is one of my favorite questions I've ever been asked by a parent. She said to me, and she wasn't asking me in particular, she was saying in general, she said, how does someone take care of small children, like work a professional job, and get anything done around the house? Like, how do you do that? I know. And I said to her, I'm working on that. I said, it's the things, it's the urgencies that get taken care of first. And all those projects that you've, wanted to get to seem really in the distant future before you're going to get to them. And so the reason I'm bringing that up is that I think that part of kind of establishing new summer routines and establishing what the summer is, how we're structuring our summer now that we're home, is that if you as the parent can get your to-do list done, then you can mentally and physically really be engaged with your child and not feel like, oh my gosh, there's 25 things that I have to be doing. And I think that when you can be really present like that, the play, like we're talking about, is much easier than when you're just so worried about the things waiting for you. And so I think that establishing some responsibility for the kids, little kids think it's fun. As you know, toddlers love to sweep and wipe and spray things. It's not particularly helpful.
Water the plants. That's Jack's big job. Yeah.
Little kids love that, and they're desperate to do it. Unfortunately, when the kids could actually be helpful, they've lost the desire.
Total desire is gone.
But in pediatrics, we always do talk about chores and responsibilities at home. I talk about this at every single wellness visit. And sometimes, I say to the kids, now, what do you do at home? What do you do to help out? And a lot of times the kids say, I pick up my dirty clothes, I put my plate in the sink. But then I have some patients where the kids say, well, I take the trash out on Thursdays. They know what their responsibilities are. And implementing things like that can be really, really tricky. So I think you start small. But if you can get your children to help with some of those things and take some responsibility so that you can be more present with them and get those things done for when the time comes, I think everybody wins. And I know as a pediatrician that teaching that responsibility is really important for them.
One thing we've started to do is if we have to leave the house and the kids are at home, we put a list for them so they can, with a little box, and they check it off. So that whole sense of accomplishment, just as an adult, when you have your to-do list, and it feels so good to mark things off. But on a Saturday or whatever it is, if I'm running to the grocery store and my husband's out, we'll have the list of 5 things they need to do, clean their room, vacuum upstairs, put away laundry or whatever before they go do, a bike ride with a friend or going to Starbucks for my teenager or whatever it might be. I think that could really be incorporated in the summer, especially for those middle age kids who might not have a camp every day. Sometimes they might be at home. But if they have a sort of a working list of items that they need to accomplish for the day, it seems like that could give them a sense of purpose.
I totally agree with that. And that actually having that little bit of discipline and things that are for you. Like if my room is clean, then I can find the things that I need to go have fun. I think that translates well to when they are a little older and they do get a summer job, and they need to have that discipline and know that I have to be there at a certain time, accomplish these responsibilities. I think those skills do translate. And this summer for my kids is something that I have been working on for years. We're going to get there. We have to get there eventually. Is I really need them to help me pack their bags. Like if we're going off for the day. I don't know why this has been such a barrier for us, but it's hard. But if we're going off for the day, we're going to go to the beach, we're going to go to a pool, we're going to go on a hike, whatever it is. What do you need? What might you need while we're gone? And we're really working on this because, in the moment that they're getting ready, oh, I don't need a sweatshirt. Oh, I don't need a hat, and I'm like, but you might. And I really try to teach those natural consequences. Like I'll suggest it. Do you want a sweatshirt in your bag? No, I won't need it. And then when it's chilly, you're not being mean. Nothing bad's going to happen. But you just say like, yeah, sometimes you don't know when it's going to get cool at night. And that's why we sometimes do put a sweatshirt in our backpack. So I'm really working on this summer. And I'm really trying to not enable them to rely on me to do it. And really, that's hard for me, right? Because when we get to wherever we're going, we want to be prepared. We want to have fun. But I really want to teach this skill. So I'm digging in.
And sometimes it's easier if you just handle it.
Yes.
Right? But it is about building self-confidence in the long term. At what age is that okay and reasonable to start doing? Because I have thought about that a little bit with my 5.5. I mean, he's almost 6. He'll be 6 at the end of the summer. And we'll get somewhere and he'll say something about where's his water bottle. And I was like, well, I didn't bring a water bottle. Did you bring a water bottle? And I gently and nicely, I kind of say, well, did you bring one? And he'll say no. And so I've been thinking, like, are we to a point where we can sort of empower him to do a checklist before with some parental help?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the water bottle that is a struggle, Adrienne. I have it too.
The struggle is so real. But let's stay on that a little bit. What about keeping kids hydrated? Because I feel like, well, first of all, let's think back to when we were kids. Did we carry water bottles everywhere?
Isn't it so funny?
Not at all. And now I'm after my kids all the time. Well, do you have a water bottle? Do you have your water? Do you have your water? Like, they are going to be okay if they don't have a water bottle everywhere they go, right?
It's true. When this really comes up is with like small toddlers who parents feel like they're offering water, like offering water in a sippy cup or things like that. And they feel like they're not drinking very much. If you're offering it, if it's there and available and you're offering it, your child will drink it if they need it. Parents really, really worry about this when it's hot. And I think the important things are just, monitoring your child, making sure that they still have good energy level. They still seem like they're okay and offering it, but they know to take it when they need it. So having it available. The older kids, I'm with you, Adrienne, some natural consequences. You're going to be thirsty. You might pack that water bottle, Or you'll be at the mercy of a water fountain or whatever, whatever you can
or just won't drink all day. It's what I have a feeling sometimes that my middle schooler, if he forgets his water bottle, which he does often, middle school, I don't know that he actually drinks water all day. I don't know. He says he does. I hope that's true. But that mother's instinct is like, oh, come on, you got to drink some water. What do you say, though, to encourage reluctant kids to get out? I mean, summer, because a lot of kids are left to their own devices throughout the summer. How do we get them out of the house and engaging in physical fun and, finding that balance between, you want a day to chill out at home and play video games with your friends or whatever, but you did that yesterday. Let's make sure today we're out riding bikes or taking a walk, whatever it is.
I think that having a routine, children thrive on routine, parents thrive on routine. We all do. It's part of why that transition from from school year to summer is so tricky. We were so established in our routines. We know what works. And I think that having some sort of routine in the summer would be the best way to combat some of that so that they know they have time to chill. Yes, you want time to just veg out and do whatever you want inside. That does happen. That happens depending on what your day looks like, when it's super hot in the middle of the day. But, first thing in the morning, we take a walk, we go get the mail, we walk the dog, we visit our neighbor. A lot of towns have trail systems. We're going to walk a new trail today. Having something in plan, because I think we've talked about this in a different podcast, it won't happen by accident. The default is not to go out and do these things. It has to be really intentional. And we all know that if it's something that your child feels like they chose or feels like might be fun to them, it's usually going to be more successful. So, even if they don't really know what they want to do, but you let them pick between 3 different things, we can take a walk, we can go check out the new, whatever it is, or we can start gathering supplies for our lemonade stand or, something like that, and let them pick and let them be excited about it. And I think that would help. And I think that if you can engage a friend or a peer that makes it more fun, that often will work too. And I think if there's other working parents, you probably could collaborate and say,
True.
I can take the kids on Tuesday and we're going to go, see that new movie. It's supposed to rain, and I think that maybe sharing that responsibility with another parent would feel great.
Well, we've talked about staying physically active, mentally active, staying safe over the summer. If there was one piece of advice, which I'll tell you, my takeaway from this is keeping it a little bit more simple, like take a little pressure off of always having something. But if you had one piece of advice, something we could do today as a lot of us are already in summer at this point or will be next week, what would that be?
I think it would be to make that list. It's summer 2024. What are we going to do? If you have multiple age kids, what do you want to do to the little guy? What do you want to do to the middles, and an older one? Did you want to work this summer? What's that going to look like? Did you want to volunteer? But really finding out what's on your kids' agenda, because I think separating our own agenda from our kids' agenda is hard sometimes.
Yes, that's such a great point.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
And just knowing that's what you want to do this summer, great. And I'm a working parent and I have a household to run. And so we're going to work together to keep this household running so that we have this time to do these fun things that you told me are important to you. And so then when they are having a lazy morning and they're not sure they want to separate from the couch or the TV or whatever's got their attention, you remind them, we were really excited about these things. And summer's short. It's going to go by so fast. We're going to make the most of it. We're going to get these things done. And you won't get everything on the list done. That's okay. Carry it over to next summer. You've got a starting off point. And I agree with you, Adrienne, no pressure to make it grand or, like you said, to have a great Instagram post. That's certainly not what your children are going to remember about their summer. Right. So
I love that idea of separating your agenda from their agenda. And to me, that's slowing down and hearing them on what makes for a good day in the summer.
Yep, they'll tell you. Definitely.
Yeah, oh yeah, they will. That's for sure.
And get them to help you.
No doubt there.
Because you can't do it alone. This is an opportunity to, this summer, you're going to help me with the unloading the dishwasher. You're going to sort the silverware. You're going to pack your own bag. Get them to help you. Because once all the chores are done, the work is done, then there's more time for the having
the fun. Yeah, all the reasons we love summer. Dr. Perkowski, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time as always. And I want to mention too, we'll have more resources on our website, wgme.com/raisingme. Thanks for chatting with us.
Of course. Have a great summer.
You too. I got to tell you, I so loved that little wake-up call. Your agenda is not their agenda and vice versa. I mean, consider that at least a little bit. Talk about it and maybe we can all chillax a bit. And finding the simplicity in summer activities, especially the ones that engage a range of ages, like in my house, 5.5, almost 6 to up to 16-year-olds. I'm thinking lemonade stand, those water balloon fights, and a slip and slide. I mean, come on, who doesn't love a slip and slide? And routine, yeah. Our kids definitely need downtime. We all do, right? Though, like Dr. Perkowski talked about, routine is still so important. What are the things that still need to be accomplished, for instance, every day? Like, is it walking the dog and taking out the trash? Maybe empower kids who are a little bit older to do the laundry while you are at work. Things that in the end help you and allow you to be more engaged with the kids and the family when you are at home. while also, of course, still leaving that important unstructured play and hangout time. I really hope you have an awesome summer. Thank you so much for listening to Raising Me. I'm Adrienne Stein. This episode is edited by Megan Littlefield and produced with Nate Eldridge. Please follow Raising Me wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, if you give us a positive rating and review, we really appreciate that. It also helps others to find the message and our podcast. Wherever you are, I hope you learn something new and get to take a little time for you.